Welcome back to Southern Life. On today's video, we're going to be exploring the southern tip of Sarasota, Siesta Key. I guess everybody just assumes that Sarasota is one giant expensive city for only rich people and that there really isn't any affordability here. But to be honest, there is a lot of affordability in Sarasota. You don't exactly have to be a millionaire to live here. In fact, on the southern side of the city, there's neighborhoods that are affordable, safe, and the price ranges are very reasonable. Some of Florida's other cities along the coastline have a reputation of being snobby and presumptuous, but Sarasota is actually a pretty down-to-earth city despite all the luxurious accommodations that it has. Perhaps you've thought I probably couldn't afford to live in Sarasota, but with the increasing prices of real estate throughout the whole country, Sarasota is actually starting to look like a fairly competitive option where you can find something affordable, nice, that doesn't break the bank in a city that really is an incredible place to live. Now, I'm not going to focus too much on the north side of the city. That's the absolutely most affordable place because it's got a lot of crime. Most of us are not going to compromise safety for living somewhere more affordable. And in the city of Sarasota, you don't have to. The south side of the city has affordable areas that are not known to be high crime rate. We're going to start off here in Gulf Gate Estates. Now, this is an area just to the south of downtown Sarasota. Living here offers you easy access to Siesta Key, named one of the best beaches in the United States. Gulf Gate Estates is at nighttime open till like 2 or 3 in the morning. Lots of bars, nightlife, mostly a very heavy drinking area. You have a lot of Europeans here. There's German, Italian, and straight ahead of us, you're going to notice also a taste of Spain. This area has a large European influence. A little bit north of here, there's also a considerable Jewish community, so this area has a lot of white diversity. It's overwhelmingly a white area, but there's different types of white people from different parts of the world, and it's a really nice area. There's really unique restaurants and grocery stores, all the things you would want from a diverse area. Of course, if you're on Siesta Key or adjacent to the water, it's extraordinarily expensive, but all you have to do is go a little bit further inland and prices decline dramatically. This is actually a fairly affordable area in a lot of ways. Considering how close you are to the beach, I mean, that really is what you get here. You get really affordable beach access to some incredible beaches. For example, if you lived in Naples, Florida, at the same price range, you would have at least a 45-minute commute to get to the beach. We're going to mostly focus on the positive stuff about this area on today's video, so I'm just going to go ahead and quickly state what the negative things are, and then we'll continue with the video. When you talk about bad things about this area, the nightlife is a little rowdy. If you are into bars and nightlife, these bars and nightlife at around 2 or 3 in the morning are about as messed up as it gets. You got people passed out, vomiting, you got fights, you got police outside the bars. I mean, if you are into nightlife and being out at 2 or 3 in the morning, these are some of the worst bars in nightlife. Now, during the daytime, Gulf Gate Estates is pretty nice and quiet. There are visible homeless people here, but there really isn't a huge safety concern. Now, at night, when the nightlife kicks off, 2 or 3 in the morning, Gulf Gate Estates gets to be pretty undesirable. And it seems like the nightlife is 24/7. It could be a Monday or a Tuesday night, and there'll be a place open till 2 or 3 in the morning, and guaranteed there's going to be fights and brawls outside. The nightlife here pretty much is as crappy as it gets because this is a heavy drinking area, even on weekdays. So if you're out and about in the daytime, you shouldn't have a problem, but if you do go out late at night, or you're one of those people that likes to enjoy like really good ambiance, it really isn't that refined because this area here is predominantly locals. More than anywhere else I've seen in the southern tip of Florida, a lot of the people that live here claim to be lifelong locals. Versus back in Naples, for example, or Fort Myers, where most people you meet are for somewhere else, most of the people here are locals, and that means that it's a pretty heavy drinking area. Homelessness is visible, but it's mostly contained into commercial areas at this moment, which means if you live in a residential area, you probably aren't going to have problems with the homeless. But if you're going to a gas station, if you're going to a restaurant, if you're going to any commercial area, you're probably going to see people panhandling. And at night, they're mostly up the whole night dumpster diving in commercial areas. But on garbage night, sometimes they do venture into residential neighborhoods to do some dumpster diving. It isn't like horrendous, but it is noticeable here or there. Homelessness and the drinking situation are probably the two biggest downs about this area. Everything else is pretty much good. I mean, overall, it's a very safe area. I have never had safety concerns here. Most of my concerns here have been dealing with drunk people because I do Uber drive at night, and that's almost expected. Notice the shopping carts at the end of the residential neighborhood starting the commercial area. Notice in the front a nice gated community. If you're buying houses in the range of 500,000 all the way up to $1 million, there are plenty of options in Sarasota. Gated communities in this area, they're very nice communities. Very gated, very private, very secluded, very low traffic. Some of the houses that are adjacent to the water can get up to be as much as $2 million in some of these gated communities. Now, I didn't get video of those areas on today's video because they're gated, but I work in this area, and if you're looking for a gated community and you're looking to spend somewhere between $600,000 to, let's say, $2 million, there's plenty of options in South Sarasota, and they are very good, decent communities. I would definitely recommend them. 28 minutes from the Sarasota airport, where you can catch a flight to Newark, New Jersey, Chicago, wherever the crap you're going to. So the obvious and most incredible thing about living here is access to Siesta Key. You can see that I just drove, let's say, a few miles and we're already heading towards Siesta Key. Literally 10-15 minutes, you're on the island, on the beach, and that's what makes this area very attractive. So from here forward, there's a few houses that are more expensive. These apartments and hotels are pretty affordable, nothing out of the way crazy here. But the houses that are going to be directly on the water, then the prices increase dramatically. So this is kind of an area where prices increase dramatically the closer you get to the water, where around here you might have like a normal price range or maybe a little elevated because proximity to Siesta Key. But if you took a right down one of these streets here, then the houses would be really expensive because now those houses are directly on the water. So there is kind of a quick jump in price ranges, but that's the great thing if you're looking for affordability. It's that you could easily be close to really good areas without having to pay those prices. Now we're officially on Siesta Key, named one of the best beaches in the United States. Most of the southern end of Siesta Key is tourism, hotels, and resorts. And then when you get to the northern side of the island where it's a little bit wider, there's a lot of single family homes. I've worked for a lot of people that live in those areas and they're very decent, but there is an abundance of vacation rentals, which makes living there year-round kind of a little chaotic, especially during the spring break when people from other states like Ohio come over here and make a complete havoc of this area. Mostly everything over here is going to be gated, whether it's a community, a resort, or a hotel. It's places that if you don't have a code, you can't get in, like this particular community right here. So everything here is just kind of all very compressed, very tight, because it's kind of a very skinny island towards the southern end. It feels like about 40% of the houses here are vacation rentals at this point, so very few locals actually live on this part of the island. Now, what makes Siesta Key's beaches kind of one of the best in the world, which to me is a stupid statement because there's beaches out there that have really clear water, that have incredible mountains and tropical weather year-round. So to me, when I hear somebody say Siesta Key is one of the best beaches in the world, you kind of just have to shake your head and know that that's some type of marketing gimmick. But at the end of the day, for the world of Americans, this is one of the best beaches. You have kind of a really slow slope out into the water, which means that people that have kids like this beach because they don't have to worry about their kids getting in deep water. So it's a very slow and steady slope with very clear water, and it usually doesn't have very many waves. There's like some sandbanks and those slow steeps, which means that it's a very safe beach for families because you don't have to worry about big waves. You don't have to worry about the water getting deep all of a sudden. In fact, you'll see people walking really far out and they're still in waist deep water. That is what makes Siesta Key valuable, specifically for people traveling with families that want to take their kids to the beach but not have to have any worries about safety, like a shark eating you, Daytona Beach. As you head further north into the central part of the island, many of these are going to be vacation rentals as well, including some of these larger houses. People actually do rent these out. I think they're kind of like 3 or 4 story houses, and they'll rent out each level at a time. You can see there's more big houses being put in. Some people do live on the island permanently, but for the most part, most of these houses are going to be rentals, extraordinarily expensive. I mean, I don't even have an idea what it would cost to rent these houses, but apparently rich people from up north do rent them. Ohio, Michigan, New Jersey, New York, Pennsylvania, those are the states that come here the most from what I can tell. And there's also a lot of Colombians, Spaniards. I mean, this is after all an international destination because of the fame that it has. So it does attract people from all over the world. On this particular day, I think I got somebody who might have been Colombian. I'm not really sure about their nationality. I didn't ask them. But being an international travel destination, plenty of international tourists here as well. Most of them are going to be using the Sarasota airport if they're within the United States. But if they're international, then they're going to be using the Tampa airport. You'll notice in the morning around 4 or 5 a.m., lots of people leaving Siesta Key or Anna Maria Island heading back into Tampa. So this is a international destination, and most of the international people are using the Tampa airport. And while it is a very small percentage of the population of tourists, you will notice people here dressed in their traditional garments from whatever part of the world you're in. I mean, I've seen everything from what look like monks, maybe Asian monks, to Arabic people, to Indian people. Like, you'll see literally every type of traditional clothing here because, like I said, it is an international travel destination. In the wintertime, there's a considerable Amish community in South Sarasota, but that's a little bit closer to downtown around Bahia Vista. The part around Gulf Gate Estates doesn't have that many Amish people, but you'll see the Amish people as well. So this is a place where you get to see, especially during the wintertime when we have more tourism, people from all parts of the world, and it makes it kind of a really neat island feel. For the most part, most of the tourists here, like I said, are going to be coming from the states that I mentioned, and they mostly come in the winter. Now, in the early spring, late winter, I noticed that there was an abundance of people from Ohio. Ohio seems to come during this time of the year the most. Probably the most insubordinate group of people you're going to get on the island is going to be the spring breakers from Dayton and Cincinnati. They are the most cliquish, the most rowdy, and the most unruly. So that happens kind of like in the spring, so that's already passed. And those tourists are probably the worst. They're the most problematic. In fact, last time that the spring breakers from Ohio were down here, they even had to have like police on ATVs chasing people all over the place. Large house parties with over 100 people. So they're also up till 3 or 4 in the morning, screaming, drunk, vomiting on the road. So that's a very conflictive group of people. There's also a lot of people from Cleveland, Youngstown, Warren. They seem to be a little bit more mild-headed, but for sure, as a fact, when the group of kids from Cincinnati, Ohio come down here in Dayton, it becomes an absolute nightmare on the island, to the point where some people are even complaining about spring breakers with good reason. On the wider part of Siesta Key, you do have a lot of full-time residents, particularly around here, but there's also a lot of vacation rentals dotted throughout this whole area. Sometimes houses may look like single-family homes, but they're really vacation rentals, so it's kind of a difficult situation for the people that live here year-round dealing with the vacation rentals. It can be kind of an inconvenience. If you spend some time parked in the same spot, you'll notice shuttle buses, golf carts, people walking. It really is an entourage of different people enjoying the beaches, and that kind of gives it a little bit more life. So Siesta Key, it's not a sleepy little island. It's actually pretty busy, and perhaps for people who like to see people out and about and like to see people doing things, not just people kind of sleeping on an island, perhaps this is a more fun place to live. And I will say that the locals that I meet are very eclectic people. They're very outgoing, they're very fun, they're world travelers, so there's just a little bit more class versus money here. They're people that are kind of more fun, not so boring, so the locals that I meet on the island are actually pretty cool. So when I lived down in the Naples area, I used to work a lot on Fort Myers Beach. The locals were obnoxious, entitled, rude, disrespectful, just kind of engorged with themselves. And these people here that live on this island are totally different. They're the type of people that are outgoing. They want to have a conversation. They want to see what places you've traveled to, tell you about the places they've traveled to. So the locals on Siesta Key are definitely, I would say, more classy versus less snobby. And it really is enjoyable to get people that live on the island. I don't think I've ever got somebody who's a local here who hasn't tipped, so they're very conscious of the struggle of the regular working class person. So completely different world versus Fort Myers Beach. Like, I remember last time I worked on Fort Myers Beach, I got a guy, he sat down in the car, I asked him how his day was going, and he says, well, I'm having a bad day, so you probably don't want to talk to me. I'm just not in a good mood today. And I'm like, you want to walk, you know? And obviously that guy didn't tip. So These are not snobby island people like you would get like in Fort Myers Beach. These are just kind of more down to earth, wealthy people that have enjoyed their lives to the full with the resources they have. A massive upgrade from the people that you find on Fort Myers Beach. So, people that live here, from my experience, are more interested in talking about life experiences and not politics. So, they're not a bunch of old grouchy people. They're just kind of people who have really enjoyed their lives and live in a beautiful place. They chose Siesta Key because they wanted to live in a colorful, vibrant place, not Fort Myers Beach because they wanted to be isolated from people because they felt they were better than others. So it is kind of a more welcoming vibe from the locals versus in other places along the Florida coastline where the people that are wealthy that live on the islands almost feel possessive over the place. And they're always like, why are you walking down my street? Do you live here? Are you working here? Are you working for Mr. Johnson? Or are you here to rob us? No, like they're not like that. And I think it makes kind of being on the island a joy all the way around, whether you're dealing with the locals or you're dealing with the people that are tourists. And I'll be honest, even the workers that I get on the island are pretty fun. So it is a very enjoyable place to work and visit. Now, when it comes to law enforcement, Siesta Key is not patrolled by the city of Sarasota. It's patrolled by the Sarasota County Sheriff's Office. And I will be honest, they do have some hotheads over here. My brief encounters with them is that they're very strong, very authoritative, telling you, move your car now or I'll taser you, son. I am the law type of people. And I've actually heard experiences from people who are vacationing down here where, you know, they had an altercation in the apartment next door to them and they could overhear the police officer screaming orders at people very authoritatively. In fact, one of the officers actually went on a very vulgar, explicit rant on the person that was being arrested's parents because it was a minor who was doing some horrible behavior. And then the cops came around and then the cops went on a rant against the parents for allowing their kids to be a detriment to society, very explicit. And it kind of left my passengers shook that like a law enforcement officer would go on an explicit rant at somebody because of how bad their kids are. So it's very authoritative from a law enforcement perspective here. So it's not like in Sarasota where the cops are just sitting there in the background making sure everything's cool. Here they're kind of like, I am the law. Get out of your car now. And of course, the sheriff's office doesn't have to give you body cam footage, so they're not worried about how they treat people because there's no accountability versus the city of Sarasota where about half of their police, I think a good portion of their arrests end up on YouTube because people pull the body cam footage of most of the arrests, I think, that are interesting at least. So in Sarasota, the police officers in the city, right, they're aware that they're going to get audited, so they know that they have to treat everybody with dignity and respect. Where here, the cops don't have to turn in body cam footage, so they're not worried about looking like hotheads. Kind of uncalled for considering that there really isn't any serious crime out here. But regardless, as you head to the north side of the island, you'll notice that there's definitely visible hurricane damage here. I think this area was under like 4 feet of water during the hurricane, so it's a miracle how fast they cleaned up this area. If this had been Fort Myers, there'd still be piles of garbage on the side of the road. And it isn't just because Hurricane Ian was worse. It's just because here, I really do think they were very efficient because I gauged Hurricane Ian destruction and I gauged this destruction, and we got hit pretty hard up here. I mean, it wasn't a 15-foot storm surge, but it was still pretty bad. Either way, I feel like the cleanup efforts here were pretty quick, and things are starting to look like normal. So every once in a while, you'll see some hurricane destruction, but it's probably less than 10% of the visible landscape out there. Like on this part of the island, you can definitely tell the trees are still kind of beat up a little bit, but it isn't going to ruin your experience. It just might not be as perfect as you'd want it. Then there's this light here on the north side of the island that usually takes forever. I don't know what the problem is with this light, but it's an absolute nightmare. Sometimes you can be stuck at this light for 10, 15 minutes, and I do believe there's a camera up there, so if you decide to blow it, you'll get a ticket. As you head towards the absolute northern tip of Siesta Key, then up here, I don't think there's too many vacation rentals. I think these are mostly single-family homes and a lot of people that snowbird and stuff like that. So up this way, it's much quieter. And there's great fishing opportunities here. There's great bridges to enjoy like fishing. You'll see manatees here all the time. You'll see dolphins. I mean, this really is a beautiful place. And the notion that if you live in South Sarasota, these beaches are practically at your doorstep makes this a really great place to live. If you were to look towards the left here, as we pass the North Bridge, you can get an unobstructed view of downtown Sarasota. Now, I think there is a height requirement, so it's not like these are really tall buildings, but there's quite a few of them. And I just think it's a really nice, relaxing drive. On the left, here's a nice little park. Before I moved to this area, I would come up here and fish this spot. I haven't really fished it since I've been down here. Thinking about today's a Saturday, it'd be a great day to go fishing. We just did a beach day, I think Thursday or Wednesday. I can't remember. Last week we had one beach day. Might have been Wednesday, but we like to go to the beach during the weekdays because there's less people and we don't have to deal with the weekenders. But for the most part, you know, like once you get back here, now you're kind of in Sarasota again. Now this is kind of a more exclusive and expensive area for sure. Neighborhoods like Cherokee Park, Sarasota Heights, basically anything south of the hospital, really great area. Probably one of the most expensive places you can live in Sarasota. Houses here are easily into the millions. In fact, this baby blue house that we're about to pass on the right is $1.8 million. It was at nearly $2 million, but they dropped $150,000. There it is right there. It was built in 2023, so it's relatively a new construction. And it's sitting there. They wanted $2 million. They've had to drop $150,000 because the market here just isn't as strong as it used to be. But that's about what things cost out here. But if you just go a little bit further, like just not that far further, like just heading like into these areas here, the prices will just continue to drop infinitely. In fact, if you just went a little bit further, this is Osprey. You'll see that there's a coconut tree up behind that sign, and there's a house 3 or 4 houses that way. It's only $700,000 for a nice smaller home. So you can see that just driving, the prices continue to decline until you get to prices like $430,000 if you go another mile inland. And this steep decline in prices as you move further inland is kind of what makes this area accessible to the regular working class person to live near the beaches without having to be a millionaire. And as we head north towards downtown Sarasota, some of the most expensive homes with golf access are going to be close to $12 million right now. And arguably this same exact house in a similar setting in Naples, for example, would be at least $23 million. And to be honest, it probably wouldn't be as fun to live there as it would be in Sarasota, especially with golf access. You have access to Siesta Key, Lido Key, Longboat Key, lots of backwater, downtown Sarasota. It would seem like to me, if I had that kind of money, I would much rather be in Sarasota. And Sarasota doesn't have that abundance of those ultra expensive wealthy houses, but there's enough of them to where the city does get a ritzy feel. And you do have to remember as well that all these newer big houses are built in the footprints of older historic homes like bungalows. And while there are a few left, like this one right here on the right, it doesn't seem like Sarasota is doing too much to preserve these historic buildings. And I think at this point, the city of Sarasota really needs to stop allowing people to tear down historic homes to build McMansions. I feel like there's a good balance of older historic homes and rich people mansions here. But if they continue this current trend, Sarasota is going to lose a lot of its character. So it could become another Naples, which to me isn't exactly the direction most of the locals would want Sarasota to take. One of the biggest complaints that I get from the locals is how they're tearing down beautiful historic homes to allow people to build these, what they call McMansions practically. And a lot of the locals are very upset that this area has lost a lot of its beauty, a lot of its essence due to the fact that they continue to allow people to tear down historic homes to build these McMansions, particularly in this neighborhood right here, which is kind of one of the most historic and beautiful parts of the city. And don't get me wrong, these big mansions are beautiful, and honestly, the city does need them. This one right here on the right particularly is one of my favorites. It's a beautiful home, there's no doubt about it, and it is appropriate for this type of coastal setting. But if they continue to remove the few remaining historic homes, then everything will just be a bunch of McMansions, and the area will look no different than anywhere else in Florida. By the way, that notification we just got was that my rent is due on the 30th, so if you're enjoying today's video, please consider donating something to our YouTube channel to continue putting gas in our vehicle so we can continue bringing you these incredible Florida videos. I'm not much of pushing merch into my audience like other YouTube creators do, or constantly mentioning the links to subscribe, or constantly mention to give some money. But look, I am playing. They're really out here reminding me that my rent's due like in a few days. So if you have ever considered donating to our channel, today would be the opportunity. Oh, but honestly, our YouTube channel does really well. I don't have to worry about paying the rent. For sure, the rent is more than covered by our YouTube channel, and I live in Lakewood Ranch, a very nice area. Not for long, we're going to move out of here soon. And I also have the truck payment, so I really don't have to worry about my bills. Our YouTube channel covers that very well, even like on a bad month. So I just have to worry about, the daily things like, whatever you spend in a day type of stuff. And our YouTube channel used to make well over $9,000 a month a few years back, but about a year and a half ago, I had a horrible accident. I ended up about 6 months in a walker, and I was in a cane for about a year. So like all of our savings kind of got depleted. My wife also got a real estate license. That was like $10,000. That went nowhere because nobody bought a house from her, despite the fact we have over 100,000 people watching our YouTube channel telling us to get a real estate license. We put her through the school. She got the real estate license. Everything was in order, and then none of you guys bought a house from her. So that was a little bit disappointing right there. But at the end of the day, guys, yeah, it is expensive to live in Sarasota, but there are affordable options. Like if me and Katie can make it here, anybody else can. And I really do believe that like a lot of people have a lot of hype about how expensive Sarasota can be, but there are affordable options. And I think in the south side of the city, you can really find good deals. What's nice about living in the south side of Sarasota is that there's no rough neighborhoods. I mean, Gulfgate Estate late at night is a drinking area. There's no doubt about that. Downtown Sarasota can be a little bit rowdy. Now, as you go north of downtown Sarasota, then you get into neighborhoods that you could probably say probably not worth living there. But they're still far safer than inner city neighborhoods in anywhere else in the country. I mean, Sarasota really is a great city. And I think the only kind of rough area is the apartments on Hillview Street. And I think they're going to have to clean that little area up regardless. It's right across from the hospital. That little street can't be a nightmare forever. Being in South Sarasota, you have, as you saw, a very easy access into downtown Sarasota. There's nightlife here. There's very nice hotels like the Ritz-Carlton, St. Regis. So there's a lot of weddings and large events. I mean, there's a lot of opportunity here. I believe that Sarasota is probably the best opportunity city in all of Southwest Florida. Fort Myers, Naples, Cape Coral, none of that can compete with the opportunities that exist in Sarasota for jobs. And also, it's just generally a fun, large city. I mean, Sarasota is probably the perfect size city. It's not too big so that it's a nightmare, and it's not too small so it doesn't have things. It's kind of like the perfect size city in a lot of ways. Check out this 3-2. It's $250,000. It's on the south side of the city. Now, it is a complete gut job. Looks like it flooded during the hurricanes. But, I mean, it's $250,000. It's not like Sarasota is that expensive. If you're to find a little small cottage on the south side of the city that needs a little bit of work, kind of like made from the 50s or something, you're talking like $300,000. So there are affordable options on the south side of Sarasota, and it's not a high crime rate area. It's a fairly safe area. Now, once you go north of Fruitville, you do get into some like higher crime rate areas where probably the affordability starts to be in question due to safety. So here's the Publix north of Fruitville. You'll notice there's maybe 4 or 5 homeless people hanging out here. It's just a normal thing. Lots of homelessness. I recently talked to an Uber passenger that lives in this little neighborhood north of Fruitville, and she was telling me she couldn't leave a broom outside of her house without it getting stolen. She says if you leave anything outside your house out here, it's going to disappear. So it's a lot more crimey. I wouldn't say it's dangerous, but it's definitely very crimey. Lots of homeless people, and their addiction leads them to all types of behaviors. But, like the north side of the city, it's probably just as affordable, but it's got more crime. So if you're looking at moving into Sarasota, it's not as expensive as people put it out to be. And there are affordable areas. Like, you don't have to end up in a scary neighborhood for affordability with Sarasota. Yeah, there's people on the island that are paying $12 million for a house, but that isn't every single person out here. Like, there really are affordable options in Sarasota, and it isn't as expensive as people put it out to be. And even on the north side of the city, they just arrested like 17 or 20 different dealers in the last month. So if they're able to stay on top of that situation and push that back into Bradenton, I guess then even the north side of the city could be somewhat livable. But I still believe it's always going to be a high crime rate area no matter what. It's not just going to stop being a high crime rate area all of a sudden. But at least it's kind of improving. But my experience has been here that they push the homeless and users out. And it doesn't take... Homies just admiring that Cadillac right there. I don't blame them. That thing is sweet. But, they push the dealers and crackheads out, and it doesn't take long before they're back. But I would say if you're not directly on US 41, close to Interstate 75 or any of the major roads, if you're just kind of offset back into a nice little neighborhood, you should be all right with South Sarasota. I mean, Sarasota is one of the safest cities out here. In 2023, they had 0 homicides. I think 2024 they got up to 5 or 6. That's why the police department's kind of cranking down on these neighborhoods that are more notorious on the north side of the city. So no, you're not going to find a house for $150,000 here or anything livable for less than $250 at the moment. But I mean, it's still pretty decent for what you get. I mean, you can live for $330,000. Let's say you can buy an inhabitable house that's within 15 to 20 minutes of the beach. Like, where else are you going to get that in Florida, especially in a city like Sarasota that's safe, clean, and has all these attractions and things to do? I do believe that Sarasota is a good deal for what it's worth, and I know it gets a reputation of being expensive. So yes, you can live in luxurious Sarasota without having to be a millionaire. There are great neighborhoods, and I do believe in the next coming months, great opportunities are going to present themselves in this area. Just watch out for flooding. Make sure you don't end up near waterways or areas that have already previously flooded, because that is a concern here.